Let me take you on a journey back to late May this year. I had the pleasure of meeting up and having an interview with the wonderful bee advocate, wildlife gardener and naturalist Brigit Strawbridge Howard, author of Dancing with Bees, A Journey Back to Nature. We explored Falmouth Victorian cemetery, celebrating the local wildlife and this beautiful haven for all insects and creatures, including the bee.
I was walking across the Malvern Hills and I realised literally in an instant that I knew more about the French Revolution than I did about the trees. And it was a shock wake-up call. Some people spend a lifetime never having had that connection. You see children, small children already who are pulled away from messy areas or told not to touch things like beetles or to swat insects. So I think it's conditioning very often from an early age.
Sometimes as we grow up we can lose that. It's really important to reconnect and have that curiosity.
A lot of people understandably think there is a bumblebee. People don't realise there's so many of them. Oh look, that's the nomad bee. And you can see it, can't you?
Yeah, oh my god.
Oh look, it's dropped off.
Incredible what is actually going on that we don't normally notice or take the time to really have a look at.
The male has a head that actually looks a little bit like E.T. On his body, so it's not your normal looking bee. The female, somewhere here, that there'll be a little hole in the ground and she'll be going in and out of the hole and filling a little cell about the size of my fingernail with pollen. Leaving these grasses and wildflowers, which some people might call weeds, to grow, it's basically created an undisturbed habitat for so many different insects. So it's a haven for plants and insects and birds and people. You can have teddy bears picnics or tea parties or anything you want, just a chance to celebrate this base. So that's what it's all about.
But here's what happened when we discovered an enormous, wonderful woodpile and got chatting about the benefits of nature on our mental health.
So this is a bit amazing. That's like a woodpile to end all woodpiles.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Oh, how lovely that they've left it here. Oh look, there's a hole here. That looks as if something, quite a few. Wow. So these, I'm guessing these would be wood-boring beetles, but there are bees small enough. So one of our smallest bees could actually, is small enough to make its nest, one of our smallest solitary bees to make its nest in that tiny little hole.
Wow, that's incredible.
It's bonkers, isn't it?
Yeah.
But there's all kinds of insects living in here. I'm just having a look at this bit here. This is sort of really, really rotted. And then of course all the nutrients will sort of go back into the earth. So it's fantastic. Nice to sit on as well. We can have our lunch on here.
Yeah. It's fascinating, all of the beauty within something that, you know, some people would look at and just say, oh, it's an old bit of wood, but there's so much beauty here and life as well. It's
like a piece of art. Do you remember, did you ever when you were a child used to put pieces of paper on bark and do bark with wax crayons?
Yes, yeah.
I used to love doing that.
It's fantastic.
That and in old churches my mum always used to come armed with little wax sticks and pieces of paper, and we used to do all of the knights on the floors and the plaques and things. Yeah. But bark's so much more beautiful. Wow.
I feel like children have a very innate connection with nature just naturally, and I feel like sometimes as we grow up we can lose that a little bit. But I think it's really important to reconnect and have that curiosity for nature and everything around us.
Have you always felt that? As a child, did you have sort of a thing for nature?
I think I was very curious. Sort of, I loved being outdoors. I loved going to the woods. But I feel like growing up, I lost that a little bit. But since then, it's sort of, especially in terms of mental health, reconnecting with nature has had massive benefits.
Really?
Yeah.
So that's quite a big thing for you, what it does for your mental health, or how it sort of, and it does improve things, doesn't it? I know, but whenever I'm down or feeling blue or or even just everyday stressed, I find that all I need to do, but sometimes the big thing is to get yourself outside. It's hard sometimes when you're in a bad place to get yourself outside. But once you do, everything, it just falls away, doesn't it?
The benefits of ecotherapy are just amazing. And I know doctors are now prescribing sort of going out into nature now, I heard.
Really?
Which is, it's fantastic really, I think.
And I think it's in Japan, I forget the term is shibun something.
Oh, forest bathing.
Forest bathing.
Yeah. I wish in this culture we were more connected with the benefits of nature and how our symbiotic relationship with them is so important for our well-being. And
Well, it's sad that we've lost it. I know you say, I mean, I don't, you're in your 20s?
Yeah.
In your 20s, I'm in my 60s. And I lost all of this for decades, literally decades. And it was in my late 40s. I was walking across the Malvern Hills and I suddenly realised, literally in an instant, that I knew more about the French Revolution than I did about the trees around me. And it was a shock wake-up call, and I think I was lucky, you know, and since then I've been a nightmare to go for a walk with because I look at everything. But I think some people spend a lifetime never having had that connection. You see children, small children already, who are pulled away from messy areas or told not to touch things like beetles or to swat insects. So I think it's conditioning very often from an early age, but you're lucky to have rediscovered it early on.
Up next, Brigit tells us more about the Love Your Burial Ground Week, which happens every year in June.
So this is another Caring for God's Acre initiative, and it takes place every year in the second week of June, and it's an opportunity for anyone and everyone who cares for and loves their burial ground to celebrate this and to put on events, and there are events all over the country. It's a wonderful week, and it spans 2 weekends as well, so plenty of chance to bring families and children in. If anyone was interested in putting on an event, there are loads and loads of resources, brilliant resources on the Caring for God's Acre website, lots of things to download. I mean, it's fun. It's not just about coming and being serious about gravestones or wildflowers and plants and insects. You know, you can have teddy bears picnics or tea parties or anything you want, just a chance to celebrate this base. So that's what it's all about.
Oh, fantastic. Do you have a favourite type of wildflower?
Oh, I do. If you woke me up in the middle of the night, I'd say stitchwort. But I love Cornish hedgerows at the moment. You know, they're kind of pink, white and blue. And I love the bluebells, and the white in them at the moment is greater stitchwort. And then the pink, I don't know why it's called red campion, because it's so pink. But yeah, red campion. So I like the combinations. And I like these little speedwells as well. You see these tiny little tiddly little blue flowers here.
Beautiful. They're almost sort of like forget-me-nots kind of.
They are. You're right.
Spaces like this, abundant with wildflowers, are so important for local wildlife. Brigit, you're a patron for the fantastic charity Caring for God's Acre, who work to preserve heritage and protect wildlife in places such as this. Could you tell me about how you became involved with them and about the work they do?
Caring for God's Acre have always been one of my favourite charities. They're a small charity. They're Shropshire based. What they do is they provide the most amazing resources, incredible resources on their website, and also if you become a member, volunteers. It's almost always volunteers who care for beautiful spaces like this. And it's not just churches, it's burial grounds. So they're not a religious charity. 2 years ago, totally out of the blue, they asked me if I would be one of their patrons, which was a huge honour and just lovely, which means I can kind of promote them officially now. For me, it's the wildlife and the nature that has grown up around the way that this particular cemetery has been cared for, but also Caring for God's Acre are about local history as well, so local history and natural history, the two together.
That's fantastic, and spaces like this are really important for the community as well as a place to sort of reflect and actually just be immersed in nature and have that sort of time to be outside.
Oh right, I know it's interesting because this cemetery, I've never been here before, and it's really interesting because we were talking earlier about the bird song, and there's a busy road just behind us, all around us I think, but I feel as if I'm more peaceful already, and I usually talk a lot faster and a lot louder than this, but my energy changes here, and I imagine it would be a really good place to come if you were, I don't know, I'd come here if I was feeling down. I'd come and just walk or sit, but I mean, you live close by, don't you?
I live in Penryn, and also as well the University of Exeter campus. It's gorgeous there. They've got beautiful gardens, and they also have lots of wildflower gardens as well, which is wonderful because I do see a lot of bees around and a lot of nature. And I actually lived there for first year of university, and there was an abundance of rabbits across from my window and robins, and it was really, really beautiful. So, yeah.
I know, it has been a great way to have started uni life.
Definitely, yeah.
Really, really nice.
Definitely.
Wow. It's really interesting how tall the grasses are here. Do you do that as well? Do you, when you walk up, whenever I walk through a field or past hedges, I catch grasses like this, and I always, if there's something I can pull the seeds off.
Yeah, it's just being like drawn to it, just wanting to.
I know, it's just, it's irresistible, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's lovely that they leave everything, the docks as well. I'm amazed how few insects we've seen so far. I mean, this should be teeming with insects at this time of day in the sun, but maybe there's a local oilseed rape crop or something and they've all gone there, like the McDonald's of the bee world. A lot of people understandably think there is a bumblebee. People don't realise there's so many of them. We've got about 280 different bee species in Britain and Ireland, and out of those, so there's a honeybee, about 24 bumblebees, and the rest are solitary bees.
Oh, I can see one here. I can see one right there. He's just landed on the bottom of that leaf by my shadow.
Oh, that's a common carder bumblebee. That's one of my favourite bumblebees. If she's around, there'll be others. So the common carder bumblebees are, if you see a bumblebee around in October, chances are highly likely that it's going to be a common carder, because they have a longer nest cycle, all of the other bumblebees.
Oh, wow.
And they're also the bumblebee that you're most likely to get out late at night. So if you hear buzzing outside your window at 10 o'clock last light, you look out, it'll probably be a common carder. So what we're looking for, as well as anything that moves and buzzes in particular, is something that looks like a tiny, tiny wasp. So that it's a cuckoo bee. It's the bee that is very, very cheeky and zips in and lays its eggs in the nest of the host bee, of the large-headed or fat-headed bee. And the cuckoo bee is often the easiest to spot because they lurk. They're usually, this particular one, this one yellow and red, isn't it? Yellow black with red markings on it.
Oh, I can see a little one just.
Oh, that's it, that's spotted! Oh my god.
Oh, that looks like a cuckoo.
Right, there's a cuckoo, and the cuckoos don't settle. They hover and hover. She's searching for a nest entrance. And everything about this is exactly what Kevin said. You wouldn't find her in other areas of the churchyard necessarily. And so the fact that you spotted her, this is how you can tell that there is a mining bee aggregation. I find these bees so difficult to photograph because they never stay still. I'd love you to see her through this. So there are lots of different ways that people do surveys. I don't do surveys, but I like to get a better look and see what the bee is like. And commonly people will use special nets and they'll sort of swirl around and then put whatever insects they find inside the pot. But I just carry this like a little children's pot with that extra magnifying glass.
It's really handy though.
It's fantastic. Yeah. Basically you can look through this or through
yes.
This. It's promising. The fact that she's still wandering around here means that this is an active nesting site.
Oh, brilliant.
And the bee that so hoping I'd see, because I've never seen one before, commonly known as the large-headed or big-headed or fat-headed mining bee, poor thing. Yeah. And that's because the male has a head that actually looks a little bit like E.T. On his body, so it's not your normal looking bee, and a very, very waspish waist. And the chances are that the males, they could be over by now, because the males always emerge and go searching for females and mate earlier in that bee's season. And then once they've mated, they don't live for very much longer. But this is a solitary species, so it's very unlike the bumblebees and honeybees that we're most familiar with. So they don't live in colonies. There's no communication, no overlapping generations, so the adults die before the young actually emerge next year.
Wow.
The female, somewhere here, that there'll be a little hole in the ground, and she'll be going in and out of the hole and filling a little cell about the size of my fingernail with pollen, and she lays an egg in it, and then the grub hatches out, munches on the pollen, and then pupates, and then stays there for another 10 months.
Oh wow, oh bless.
And this little individual that we were just watching, this nomad bee, the cuckoo bee, is looking for a nest so that she can zip in and lay her eggs on the pollen that the large-headed bee has carefully put there for her young. There's all this going on beneath the ground.
It is fascinating, sort of the world that goes on within it.
And you would walk straight past it, wouldn't you?
Exactly, yeah.
You would just never guess. I think the other thing that we were talking about earlier, it's a good time to mention it now, is because of all the insects, and I can see some more insects over there, some flies, we've heard so much bird song.
Yeah.
There's so many birds here, and I know exactly how many birds there are because I happen to have brought along with me my Merlin bird app on my phone, and I've had it on since we were, oh my goodness! So chiffchaff, greenfinch, which is a result, jackdaw, nuthatch. It says red crossbill, but no way, that's a North American bird. Wren, dunnock, blackbird, song thrush, coal-tit, blue-tit chaffinch, carrion crow, herring gull, great tit, goldcrest, great black-backed gull, magpie, robin, rock pigeon, wood pigeon.
Wow, that is crazy.
And we've been here what? An hour, I think. We've been here an hour.
Yeah, that's such a diverse range of birds as well.
It's staggering, and that's because of the habitat. So leaving these grasses and wildflowers, which some people might call weeds, to grow, it's basically created an undisturbed habitat for so many different insects. And a lot of these birds are insect feeders, not all of them, but that's why they're here. So it's kind of like a haven for plants and insects and birds and people. Have you been here before?
I've been here once or twice, yeah, but I never sort of had looked at it in this way before. Sort of, it is incredible what is actually going on that we don't normally notice or take the time to really have a look at.
Do you think it would make you go, do you have some sort of burial grounds or churchyards? Is it near Penryn you are you?
Yeah, I mean I grew up in Four Lanes. I actually recently visited a church in Truro, on the outskirts of Truro. It was filled, it was just a plethora of bluebells and snowdrops. It was absolutely beautiful. I think it really transforms the whole landscape, and because it has a knock-on effect with all of the different animals and insects within the ecosystem, it is such a brilliant thing to have spaces like this full of wildflowers.
I was thinking, because with your world of radio, it must be a lot more difficult to talk about this when you haven't got the visuals, because we're here now with Kevin filming us, and so we've got all of this in the background.
It's brilliant to actually be out here and be immersed within it, because I think I talk a lot about mental health on the show and things people can do to improve their mental health, but I feel like actually just being here, it's completely, it really puts it into perspective how brilliant it can be.
So you're going to come again?
Definitely.
I think you ought to, I think. And also I can just see behind us there are some people here checking the jackdaw boxes that are up in the trees.
I'm joined by Lois today. Could you tell us a bit about what you're doing here?
So this is a new study site for the social cognition of jackdaws. So we set up these nest boxes so that we can study the jackdaws in a sort of semi-controlled environment. As it's a new study site, none of the jackdaws are currently here, and instead these boxes are being used by some of the local wildlife. And in this nest box we believe there's some great tit chicks, pretty much free to occupy the space until the jackdaws start moving in. So I can show you, this is just a piece of plumbing equipment that we use to visualise the nests without having to get the ladders up there. So you can just see that there's 4 or 5 chicks in there, maybe a few days old.
Wow, that's so lovely.
Yeah, it's quite a big box for them, so it's like having a mansion, I guess, for tits.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Cool.
We then continued on our quest to spot bees and came across a rather handsome fellow.
Oh, this is exciting. This is a male early nesting bumblebee, and you can tell because he's got a moustache and a yellow face, and he's gone over there. He was too there. Yeah, it's too difficult to creep up on them. That means that the nest has reached a particular stage. There's lots here suddenly of the life cycle of the males.
Yeah.
So first of all, the first few bees that emerge from a bumblebee nest are always female workers, and then just before the queen lays and produces her daughter queens, the males emerge, and male bumblebees, you'll know this from reading my book, have moustaches.
Yeah.
And this one is especially beautiful. Oh look, that's the nomad bee.
That's a cuckoo bee.
It's a cuckoo, it'll never stay. See how it takes a long time to go for a walk when you're watching bees? And if you've also got the Merlin app on and you're looking and trying to work out where the birds are, it takes even longer. This is, so bumblebees like edges.
Another one.
They love edges. Do you think there's a nest under here? In the back? Brilliant.
Right.
Now look at the size of this. So that's a blood bee. You see it's blood red. Has it got a spot on the side? I think it has, Kevin.
I think it has, yeah.
I think it has.
I think it get me. Namada flavo gutata.
Whoa! That's why I thought she was a blood bee, because it's the blood bees that go for the Lacea glossums.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so beautiful.
It's lovely. It's gorgeous with the lake in the background as well.
Oh yeah. Because it's such a beautiful bee. This bee that we were hoping would be here has got she's got like this orangey, foxy coloured hair on her thorax, and then the rest of her is black with black hairy legs, and she's really striking. Really beautiful bee. Wow, look at this. I don't know what this is, but look this insect here. Crazy insect with a great big long ovipositor, or you see. Oh, he's lost it. He's gone way down into the grass now. And there is another mini mining bee there. That time, yeah, it's gone. So look, this is a tiny solitary bee. You see?
Wow. Oh, bless. It's got like little pollen on.
So the bumblebees and the honeybees collect pollen in big, wide, smooth baskets. The ground nesting solitary bees have hairs all over their legs, little stiff branched hairs, and that's where they collect the pollen.
Oh my god.
And you can see it, can't you?
Yeah. Oh my god.
Oh, look, hard to see, but it just again gives you an idea. So this will be probably, like, could be a mini mining.
Yeah.
I think it's a mini miner because of the shape of it. Look, she wasn't bothered at all. Oh, she'd gone straight back to collecting.
Yeah.
Just in case anyone thought that was stressful for her. So that's a different species.
Oh, bless.
You can see a lot more clearly. And you can, I mean, I don't know how well, do you know, you can look down through here because it's perfect. You might see the hairs on her legs.
Yes. Oh, wow. Beautiful.
She's just in the right spot. Oh my goodness. Oh my. Isn't that fantastic? Oh, you little beauty. Oh, she's taking the pollen off her mouthparts and let it go. It's not fair, but... Oh, look. So the way that's flying, everything about the behaviour is a nomad bee.
Nomad bee.
But you see, the whole way that they fly is different. Oh, seriously, you want to look at this?
Wow.
I saw that, I would have thought it was
You'd
a
think a
wasp.
wasp, I know. Look, can you see the back is her abdomen's kind of tilted up, and her legs
Just float.
when she's flying. So honeybees are always like this. Honeybees' legs are always dangling, but these cuckoo bees, they always have spread out legs. She's beautiful.
Kano Conservation is a brilliant community interest group that you're an ambassador for. Could you tell me a bit about them?
They are working very much with local landowners to help increase habitat for certain species. The biggest focus at the moment is the water vole, and they're busy raising funds currently to basically reintroduce water voles to habitats that they have already checked and made sure are American mink free, which is very, very important to Cornwall, so that hopefully we will soon have water voles back in Cornwall.
Oh, that's fantastic. What can people do at home to look after their local bees and support them in their gardens?
Gosh, we can do so much. So, I mean, between us, with our gardens, we can't have as much influence on things like national parks individually, but at home we can of course plant very, very pollen and nectar rich plants. We've seen today, this is all very long grass and wildflowers, but we also need to create mosaic habitats, they're called, in our garden. So some short grass as well for some of the ground nesting solitary bees. And if there was one thing I would encourage people to do that they might not already be doing, it would be to bring in some of the native wildflowers into their planting schemes. So, you know, whatever you've got is beautiful and wonderful already, as long as it's not double-headed flowers, which tend to be no good to man or beast. But by bringing in things like trefoils and obviously, you know, bluebells and I'm just looking around here, plantain, anything that is native. The important about the native wildflowers is that they have co-evolved with their native solitary bees that rely on them, and that sometimes don't feed on the typical sort of garden plants that you'd think of. So yeah, bring native plants into your garden. So this has been my first ever visit to Falmouth's Victorian cemetery, and I'm just blown away. It's so beautiful. And I've been chatting with Kevin, who I know speaks a lot to the council, to Falmouth Town Council, about the management of this cemetery. And I just wish more cemeteries were like this. I wish more councils would leave the grasses and the wildflowers, or so-called weeds, to grow, because it provides such incredible habitat. And we mentioned earlier how many different birds we've heard here just in the last hour or so that we've been here, and that's down to the habitat, which is perfect for the insects. And I guess there's lots of small reptiles and amphibians around here as well, which we haven't seen. So I can't wait to come back.
What advice would you give to people who want to get more into nature and get more involved with that?
I would say get outside, whether it's for 5 minutes with a cup of tea, you know, before taking the children to school, or in your coffee break at work, and just sit and listen and watch, observe, and don't get hung up on the names of things or identifying things, because that really doesn't matter. It's just get to know your local patch, and maybe go out one day thinking, I'm going to look at all the plants and wildflowers today, and then the next day you might turn your attention to the trees and see what the trees are doing and whether they're in leaf, and another day just listen to the bird song. So then bit by bit you create a picture, and it's personal for you, and it's just nurturing and such a peaceful, easy, gentle thing to do, and it absolutely helps them with mental health issues. So yeah, I think just get outside and be outside.
Yeah, be present.
Yeah. And then just listen and watch.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful advice. Thank you so much.
And it's so lovely to meet you as well.
Thank you. You too. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was my interview with the lovely Brigit Strawbridge Howard, author of Dancing with Bees, A Journey Back to Nature, which I highly recommend you read. It's such a brilliant book and is available from all good retailers. If you'd like to keep up to date with Brigit, you can follow her on Twitter, B_Strawbridge. YouTube is Pixie Baggins, and on Instagram, Brigit Strawbridge1. Thank you so much to local nature filmmaker Kevin Thomas, who was with us throughout the interview, filming and orchestrated the whole thing. You can check out clips of the interview if you would like, courtesy of Kevin, and read about it on Kevin's blog post, Falmouth Nature, and check out Falmouth Nature YouTube to see the videos.